WAOH is brought to you in part by Ohio's #1 trusted real estate team, The Young Team, online at theyoungteam.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Again, we're here in the studio honoring those who have stepped up, answered the call to support families in need, kids in need, by being foster parents. And we're joined now on the set with Kathleen and Ron here with us. Thank you for taking the time to come down to the studio. And
thanks for having us.
let's talk a little bit about the journey that is fostering, and take us back to the very beginning. You both grew up in Northeast Ohio. You grew up in Summit County in the Akron area, and you've stayed here. You raised 4 children here, your biological children, but also answered the call to step up and be foster parents. And how did that conversation start initially?
So when I was a young child, my dad took me up to Cleveland to see the play Orphan Annie. And I came out of that and I said, boy, that Miss Hannigan was so mean to those little girls. When I grow up, I'm going to run an orphanage and I'm going to be nice to the little girls. So fast forward 10 years, I'm at college and went to nursing school. That's where Ron and I met. And after we got married, I kind of found out there really weren't orphanages around anymore. So that's when we talked about becoming foster parents. And I don't really remember having a big conversation about it. It was just kind of like, well, I don't know, let's try and see. And that was 38 years ago.
Wow.
So
yeah, we were young, probably early to mid-20s when we started.
Okay. So at one point, you had foster children that were older than your biological children. Right. So what do you think how did this change their childhood in a positive way? Would you say that first of all, they witnessed you stepping up, answering the call, and then they had additional siblings show up? How does this go?
Sure.
They did. Our earliest, one of my earliest memories is we had 2 brothers that we had in our home. When our girls were probably 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, and the boys were like 5 and 7. And they had an incredible bond. So it was like they had 2 big brothers. And to this day, 35 years later, we've been to their weddings, we've been to baptisms. They're still part of the family, and that bond is still really, really tight.
Setting aside perhaps the challenge or the trauma or the emotional difficulty of being a temporary caregiver, where a child comes into your life and you do what you can at that moment in time to fulfill the needs of that child, and reunification, the idea that their biological parents can get their life in order, do whatever is needed to be reunified with their child. But then obviously that has an effect on you as foster parents and on the siblings. How do you coach those who come to you for advice on fostering to say, hey, you're going to have to face this?
That's right.
You try to compartmentalize your feelings, where you're trying to do as much for the children as you can in the time they're with you, and be a bridge for them, be a bridge for their family. But then you also have to really put a lot of attention on your own family, because we always looked at foster care as not losing our family identity, but adding children into it, with their values and their beliefs incorporated into our family, but not losing our family identity. So we really wanted our family to remain close because it's hard, the children come and go, and some pull at your heartstrings a little more than others. And so we have to really work hard to keep our own family intact and happy and upbeat, and understanding the reasoning that we're doing foster care. But overall, it's been a very positive experience for our biological children.
Sure. And it's important that when you're sharing information about something, that you share every aspect, or you try to touch on as many different aspects of it as you can, not just paint a rosy picture, but face the reality.
Right.
And certainly, the reality is you might have had some family members or friends that questioned or said, are you sure? You know how these lunch conversations go. You're talking over coffee, or coworkers, and they say, "You're doing what? You have 4 children. Why would you?" How do you address those objections in a way?
Yeah, we've had family members say, "Why are you doing that? Why are you bringing that into your family?" And our focus has always been to make the world a better place, and to give back. And this is just something that we have identified with and feel that it's important.
Your adult children, are now in their late 20s, early 30s, and I was hearing the story that some of them live in Michigan, or they live. Congratulations on being grandparents now.
Thank you.
And that's wonderful. So maybe it's possible in the world of being a foster parent to take a little break, and now you're able to do put on the grandparent hat.
I think that's how we have stayed in it so long. Because when our children, we started with foster children before we had our own children. And then as our young ones came along, we took in teenagers because we really liked having foster children being a different age of our own. And then we took a break in the middle years when we were raising our 4 young children and came back then. And at that time, our children were more 10 to 16, and we took in smaller children. And that worked really well in our home. And now that our children are out of the house, we really focus on sibling groups. And right now, being grandparents of 4 little ones, we're taking really a break and helping out in other ways. We're still active foster parents, and we do respite, vacation time, and things like that for other foster families. And so we still can serve the community of foster care, but just in a different way right now. And then in a few years, that'll probably change again. But it's really part of who we are. So we'll probably be in it forever.
Help the viewers understand the idea of respite care. So you've had this career in fostering, and perhaps there are some people watching that might be interested in looking into fostering, and maybe there are some who sign up and only do, shouldn't say only do respite care, but serve in whatever ways they can, given whatever their time constraints are. Describe what respite care is, and especially from your point of view, what you get to do.
Yeah, Dan, I can tell you, and Kathleen talked about it earlier, we've been able to do it for as long as we have because of respite care providers that we have become connected with, and alternative caregivers. We'll have people say to us all the time, I've always wanted to be a foster parent, but, and we say, well, you can, and then we pivot to, but there's other ways that you can help, and respite is a great way to help. When you look at all the kids that we've had through our home through the years, having those respite providers that can take the kids for a day or for a night or for a weekend has allowed us through that process to recharge our battery along the way and get our heads back on straight and be able to continue to foster.
And so the agency offers a respite-only license, but it's exactly the same training as being a full-fledged foster parent. It's just that when the whole process is said and done, you may just take short-term placements, emergency placements, respites, as opposed to a full-fledged family would take children in for as long as their case plan takes. And typically that's about a year that the family has to work a case plan. And then sometimes the magistrate will grant up to 2 6-month extensions. So you're making that longer commitment, 2 or 3 or 4 years sometimes, or maybe even adoption down the road. But maybe a respite home isn't as focused on that. We're just kind of doing all the emergencies. Maybe a family has a death in the family, or they're going out of town or business or whatever. And so at the drop of a hat, we can take those children in and give them a rest.
Sure. The work-life balance, to be able to have the resources to be a foster parent or to take care of kids at any level, you need to work and you need to be out in the world doing your thing. And so the helping others with their work-life balance, certainly important. I sensed a great deal of joy when you were mentioning that maybe some of the foster kids have launched in life, and you've got to continue to play a role in their lives. And you should never assign a title to anything. It's always, and every journey is different. But you get to continue to play a role in the child's life as they become adults. And describe that. What's that joy, that reward, for help people understand how great this is?
So we've had a couple of children that maybe they left our home when they were about 3 and 4. We'd had them about a year. And a family adopted them that doesn't live far from us. And so 10 years later, we're still doing respites for that family, once or twice a month, or, whatever their circumstances are. And it's helped keep that family together. It's helped give them the support they need. And I think every foster family needs like 5 support families, through your parish or your neighbor or a family member that will help you stay with the program, because there are a lot of days you want to quit. There are a lot of hard days. And those people will come in and just, I had a lady who would come on Tuesdays and she would take my children out. I had 6 foster children at the time, 6 siblings. She would take them out to her land, which a farm and a lake, and they would fish and they would, play with her dogs, and mud was always involved. And then I would send their pajamas, and she would have them all bathed, had dinner, and bring them home and help me get everybody to bed. Just one day a week. But that was so helpful for me. So community members can do a lot to help support the family. And it really does take a village to raise a child, especially one that isn't your own. And I would say that, as foster parents, we're working so hard to do what we can to help heal whatever traumas they've gone through. We're not going to heal everything, but maybe getting them on the road to recovery. Identify some skills with the child. I don't care what age they are, young or old, they've got some skills and some talents. And then start forming a plan of momentum towards their future. We don't want the children to be victims for the rest of their lives. We want them to find some momentum in life and have hope. And that's what we see our job as.
Can you recall, I'm sure you can, the shortest versus the longest placement? And, maybe an emergency placement obviously can be a short term, and maybe another placement is longer. Give us a sense of the scale of the different amount of times for the placements.
So I would say Sue Ann was she was a little infant that came to us on a Friday night. And by Monday or Tuesday, Grandma had come to town. Okay. And so that was just like 4 or 5 days.
Sure.
And then long term, I don't know, our older boys, Noah and Bruce, we had them, I think, close to 2 years before an adoptive family was found for them. And we actually had the one boy by himself. He went home and reunited. Okay. And then the following summer, another issue happened, and both he and his brother came into care. Wow. And I remember that day well, because the boy that Ron didn't know was in the kitchen when Ron walked in. And I said, well, this is our new foster son. This is Bruce. And I said, why don't you take him downstairs to meet your brother? And he went downstairs. Now, the boy in the basement was the boy that Ron knew. We had the summer before. And all I hear is, Dad. And I hear, Noah. Oh, my So that was a great story. So we've stayed in contact with them for 35 years, I guess.
We probably had him for 3+ years when it was all said and done, except for that break in between.
Yeah.
You might be open to, I'm sure they've asked, to future stints.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't quit. You wouldn't give up. You'd stick with it. And why?
Yeah. I just don't see us quitting. It's just been a big part of our life. And you want to make the world a better place, even if it's only one child at a time. It's still making a difference.
Yeah.
There's just a need, right? There are so many kids in care that need homes that can help just help them overcome the challenges that they face. And so why that need is out there and why we're in a position to help, it's just important that we do that.
Sure, because you're in a position. Yeah. You could live in Florida. You could move to Michigan and be there the grant. You could go anywhere. You could do anything, but you choose to do this.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing and giving just a glimpse. I'm sure that we could tell stories for hours, if not to have a whole series, I'm sure. Yeah, thank you for all you're doing. Thanks for taking the time to share here on the show. And thank you for watching our ongoing series here with Summit County Children's Services, and just bringing you a sense of what goes into being a foster parent. And of course, we're hoping that perhaps somebody in our audience would be inspired by what our wonderful and certainly inspiring guests have shared with us. And perhaps somebody would take a look at summitkids.org and consider looking into and exploring the idea of being a foster parent to serve families and children in need here in Akron and Summit County. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.